Now that we've streamlined the view a bit, we see we still have all the actions in our app left here. Up to a point, that's a good thing. It means we have a central location for all the logic of our app, but we can also realize that as we keep adding features, this pile of actions is just going to keep on growing, and at some point we may want to split it up into separate domains. So we're going to look at splitting out this top part where we enter new items into a completely self-contained module, actions, view, and all. And the way we're going to do it is with a pattern that I like. I call it the wire pattern. It's important to note that I won't be using any Hyperapp features in this video. It's all just going to be about moving around JavaScript. So let's get started. We want to move these actions into the add item file. So now that the actions are no longer in this main view, we have to take them out from there, and we'll need to add them back in the add item file here, which is no problem. And then we can't use the props here. We use input new item and add item. And now it should all still work, which it does. But the problem with this is that these actions are actually dependent on the shape of the app's full state. And in this module, we can't be dependent on that. We should assume nothing about how this module is used. It should only know about controlling its own state, which is this simple value that we keep track of. So the only way we can define these actions is inside of a function we're going to export. Call it wire. And wire is going to be given two functions called get and set. And these are going to be the way that the main index file tells this module how to work with the app state. So this module doesn't have to know. Get function is going to work like this. We feed it the full app state, and it's going to return our value. And the set function is going to work like this. You feed it the full app state and as a payload a new value, and it's going to return a new full app state. We don't know how it works. All we know is that's what it does. Okay, so with those two, we can define these actions inside this function. Input new item is easy. It's just set state input. Add items a little bit trickier. Let value be get state. That's how get works. It tells us my state from the app state. We can then say if it's not truthy, return the full app state. That's basically taking care of this part of the original action. Then we can redefine the state to be set state null. That's going to take care of this part. But then this part here is really not anything to do with this module. It's from the list state. So we're going to save that for later, and we're going to say that it's up to the index file to tell us what to do when we want to add an item. So it's going to give us a function like that, onAdd, and then we can call that to redefine the state again, onAdd state and the value. And then of course it's an action, it needs to return the full app state. So we defined an action without any knowledge of how the app state is shaped. Now the only question is, how do we get it out of here and into the view? We return an object which could have several functions. This one we're just going to have one function that I call the model. And it's going to be a function of the state, which is going to return value, which is just get the state to get our value, and these actions that we just defined. Input new item, add item. There we go. And so this model is going to be passed into the view, so we can just rename that to model to make sure we understand that. And so model value, and we need to put model in front of the actions now. Okay, how do we use this again in the index? Well, we can change this import so it's all of the, oh, I forgot one thing. This is a named export, so we should change this to also be a named export. Export const view equals. Now we can import all of the things from add item as add item capitalized, and define an instance of this as add item equals add item wire. And this is where we're going to pass in the information about how to work with the app state, because now we're in the index file, which knows how the full app state is shaped. So get gets a state, and it returns state new item, because that's where we keep the value the module is supposed to work on. Set is another function that takes the full app state and given a new item value. And it's supposed to return an updated state with the new item. And we promised we would also provide information what to do when we need to add an item. So that's state, new item again to add. Oh, I lost it out of the paste buffer. I'll have to redo it. Well, it wasn't that hard. It was same as the old state. Items are new item and then all of the old items. And done was false, and then state done. This is what we had in there. So this is what we want to do now that we're going to add something. And now something broke, and that's because the view is completely wrong. We're going to change that too. Now we're going to use add item view, and this is where we pass the model. From the instance, we have the model function, and we give it the state. And this is how we pass all the actions to the view for this particular instance, and index doesn't know at all what's in it. So this should work. We should be able to say foo and add it, and that worked fine. Still not completely done. There's one thing left, and that is here we're saying that the new item's initial state is null. Of course, initial state is this module's responsibility to tell us, so export const init equals a function that returns null. And in index we say add item init. Still works. And that's basically the wire pattern.